Lila's scream shattered the quiet afternoon as she crashed to her knees on the polished marble floor of the mansion foyer, her hands clamping onto her swollen belly as if something inside had suddenly shifted. The maids shrieked and rushed toward her, but the pain drowned everything out, pain sharp enough to blur her vision and make her heart pound louder than the footsteps closing in. "Call the doctor, now!" someone yelled. A bodyguard lifted her carefully, shouting orders as he carried her to the nearest sofa. Her breaths came out ragged, broken, terrified. Lila clutched her stomach again, a warm rush moving through her like a wave. "She's only 18, one maid whispered shakily. "And she's 9 months pregnant." "But how? The Don can't—" "Shh! Do you want to die?" The room spun. Lila barely registered the arriving doctor kneeling before her. His face went still, his brows lowered, his lips parted. This is impossible," he muttered before looking up at the guards crowding them. "She's carrying a perfectly healthy child. Full term." A gasp rippled through the room. The doctor's gaze shifted to Lila, then to the towering staircase leading to the Don's private quarters. "But the Don, he was declared infertile." The entire world froze at those words. Lila's breath caught. The same panic that lived inside her since her wedding day rose again, choking her from the inside. She tried to speak, but the pain seized her again, and the world swallowed her whole. If only someone had told her that everything started the night she'd been married off to a man twice her father's age. A man the world swore could never desire her. A man rumored to be too old to even get hard. A man who would become the father of her child. Days earlier, months earlier, they all blurred together. But she remembered the wedding night as if it were happening again. Remembered how her life twisted into something she never expected. She remembered stepping out of the car that night, standing before the mansion that looked more like a fortress. Guards lined the walkway, their suits dark, their eyes darker. They watched her like she was something fragile, or something dangerous. Her heart hammered as she clutched the bouquet close. Her dress felt too heavy, too tight. She could barely breathe. "There's no turning back now," her mother whispered behind her, tears in her eyes. "Please, don't upset him." Upset him? She had never even met him properly. The arrangement had been made over her head, sealed between her father and the Don. Alessio Moretti, 62-year-old Mafia billionaire. A man spoken of with fear, respect, and quiet disgust. Quiet disgust mainly from women. The cruel whispers she'd overheard at the ceremony tore through her mind. "He's too old? He can't do anything with her. Poor girl. She'll never know a real marriage. She's basically marrying a corpse." Lila swallowed hard and stepped inside. He was waiting at the altar, tall, silver-haired, stern-faced, his presence commanding without effort. His cold eyes had surveyed her quietly, not with lust or tenderness, but with something unreadable, something that made her stomach twist. The ceremony was quick. His hand was steady when he slid the ring onto her finger, yet she felt no warmth in his touch, no interest, no claim, almost like he didn't want to be near her. That should have been her first warning. Afterward, his voice was low when he said, "You will be safe here. Not welcome, not mine, not my wife, just safe." The words rattled inside her. Later that night, the maids ushered her into the massive bedroom prepared for her. She sat on the bed, fingers fidgeting with her wedding dress, heart hammering so loudly she could barely hear herself breathing. Then she heard the footsteps outside the door, firm, slow, heavy. Her stomach clenched. He entered. Don Alessio, still in his suit, jacket off, sleeves rolled up, his face unreadable, his eyes scanning her with quiet restraint, not hunger. He closed the door gently behind him. Lila sat straighter, clutching the bedsheets. Her cheeks burned. She had no idea what to expect. He stepped closer, stopping a few feet away, and said calmly, "I will not touch you tonight." Her heart dropped. Her lips parted, but no words came. Shame spread over her skin like fire. Was she that unwanted, that unappealing? He looked away, jaw tightening. "You are very young," he murmured, almost guilty. "And I am... not." His voice cracked slightly on the last word. Lila blinked rapidly, trying not to cry. I understand." But she didn't. Not really. And he didn't explain. Just turned around and walked toward the door. When he reached it, he hesitated for a second. "You deserve more than I can give," he said quietly, back still turned. Then he left. The click of the closing door broke her. Tears spilled down her cheeks. She buried her face in her hands, sobbing silently so the guards outside wouldn't hear. But they did. They always did. And their whispers bled through the walls. She shouldn't expect anything from him. The Don hasn't touched a woman in years. Poor girl. He's too old to get hard. His body can't handle it. Imagine being married to a man who can't even... Lila covered her ears, tears shaking her shoulders. The words cut deeper than knives. She cried herself to sleep, trembling, hurt, and feeling unwanted by the man she'd been bound to for life. The next morning he didn't come to see her. Or the next. Or the next. They barely crossed paths in the enormous mansion. He walked with the stiffness of someone carrying a secret weight. He kept his distance from her like she was made of fire, and every time she passed the guards, the whispers followed. "He'll never touch her. She's stuck in a cold marriage. She'll leave before the year ends." But Lila didn't leave, because she had nowhere to go, because her family begged her not to, because somewhere deep inside her broken heart, she still wondered. Why did he look so sad that night? Why did he speak like a man haunted? Why did he keep avoiding her? She wanted answers, and one night she finally asked for them. She found him in the study, reading reports. The lamp cast a warm glow on his tired face. Her heart hammered as she stood by the doorway. "Don Alessio, can we talk?" she asked softly. He stiffened. Slowly he lifted his eyes to hers. "Is something wrong?" he asked. "Everything," she whispered before she could stop herself. A flicker, barely noticeable, passed through his eyes. She stepped closer, courage shaking through her voice. "Why did you marry me, if you don't want me?" His pen froze mid-sentence. For a long, suffocating moment, he said nothing. Then he opened his mouth slightly, but no words came out. His throat worked, his fingers curled into fists. His gaze dropped to the floor like he couldn't bear to look at her. Lila's breath hitched. That was the first moment she realized something was deeply, painfully wrong. And it had nothing to do with his age. It was something darker, something he refused to say. If only she had known then that this man, cold, distant, unreachable, would one day fight for her life with his bare hands, and leave behind the one night that would change everything. Lila stood frozen in the silence that stretched between them, waiting, hoping, for Alessio to say something, anything. But he only stared at his clenched fists, jaw tight enough to crack. The quiet was unbearable. She whispered, voice trembling, "Do you hate me?" His head snapped up instantly. Something like pain flashed through his eyes, quick, raw, gone too fast. "No," he said sharply, too sharply. Then softer, almost regretful. "No, Lila, I don't hate you. Then why do you avoid me? She asked, swallowing the lump in her throat. Why do you act like I'm not even here? His breath hitched, barely audible. He looked away, gaze drifting toward the shelves lined with old books. It's complicated. You make it complicated, she whispered. He flinched, her heart squeezed. She stepped closer, her voice cracking. Just tell me what I did wrong. You've done nothing wrong. He replied immediately, but the torment in his voice only confused her more. Then explain, she begged. Alessio stood abruptly, too abruptly. The papers on his desk rustled like startled birds. He turned his back to her, rubbing the bridge of his nose. You should go to bed, Lila. Something inside her snapped. No, she said, louder than she meant to. I'm tired of pretending. I'm tired of sleeping alone in that giant room. I'm tired of feeling like a burden in a marriage I didn't choose, but I'm trying my best to survive. His shoulders stiffened. He didn't turn. Lila's throat tightened. You won't talk to me. You won't look at me. You won't touch me. And you won't even tell me why. Alessio's voice came out low, almost broken. Because if I tell you, you'll be even more miserable than you already are. She blinked, confused. What does that even mean? He didn't answer. He couldn't. So she ran out. Her chest burned. Her vision blurred. She didn't stop until she reached her room, slammed the door, and buried her face in her pillow. She cried into it, muffling every sound. She hated that she was married to a man who acted like a ghost, a man who didn't want her, a man who... Quiet footsteps approached. She sat up quickly and wiped her eyes, but the door didn't open. He didn't knock. He didn't speak. But she heard him standing there, breathing, listening, then walking away. It hurt worse than anything. Days bled into each other. Their interactions became forced, stilted. He spoke to her only when necessary. Her safety, her meals, her schedule. His voice always formal, always distant. But she noticed things. He corrected any guard who spoke harshly to her. He had her favorite snacks added to the kitchen. He installed heaters in her room when she once complained it was cold. He stood at the balcony late at night, staring at her window. He cared. Somehow, he cared. But he kept a wall between them, brick by painful brick. Then everything changed the night the mansion was attacked. It began with a distant explosion that rattled the windows. Lila jolted awake, heart hammering. Shouts erupted in the hallway. Heavy footsteps thundered. Someone yelled, "Secure the bride! Now!" Her door burst open as 2 guards rushed in. "Stay down!" one shouted, grabbing her arm. "What's happening?" she cried. "Rivals breached the east wing," he barked. "They're after the Don." Lila's blood turned cold. "Alessio?" she whispered. Before anyone could answer, gunfire ripped through the mansion. Glass shattered. A deafening blast shook the entire corridor. "Down!" the guard yelled, pushing her flat to the floor as bullets tore through the wall. She screamed, covering her head. The dust choked her lungs. Her ears rang. Terror swallowed her whole. When the gunfire paused, the guard pulled her up. "We need to move." "No," she said, breathless. "Where is he? Where is Alessio?" "Stay back. It's not safe." Another explosion thundered from the courtyard. Smoke rolled down the hall. More gunshots. Lila broke free and ran. "Mrs. Moretti, stop!" the guard shouted behind her. But she kept running, because something inside her snapped, because the fear of losing him, this distant, frustrating, unreachable man, was far worse than the fear of bullets. She raced down the stairs barefoot, hair wild, heart crashing in her chest. The smell of gunpowder thickened the air. Then she saw him. In the center of the courtyard, under the glow of burning cars and broken lights, Alessio stood bleeding from his arm, holding a gun with lethal calm. He fired precise shots, dropping 2 attackers as another lunged toward him with a blade. "Alessio!" she screamed. His head whipped toward her, right as the attacker struck. A flash of silver, a grunt of pain. Blood misted the air. "No!" she cried, running toward him. Alessio fired one last shot, dropping the final attacker, but his legs buckled. The gun clattered to the ground. He stumbled back and collapsed onto the stone pavement. Lila fell to her knees beside him, hands shaking violently as she grabbed his face. "Alessio! Alessio, please look at me!" His eyes fluttered open, dazed. "Lila," he whispered, almost relieved. Blood soaked his sleeve. His breathing was shallow, strained. "You're hurt," she cried, tears blurring her vision. "I told them to take you to safety," he murmured weakly. "You shouldn't be here." "I don't care," she sobbed. "I was so scared. Alessio, please, stay awake." His hand reached up slowly, trembling, brushing her cheek. It was the first time he had touched her willingly. "Don't cry," he whispered. "I'm fine. You're bleeding." "I've bled worse," he muttered with a faint smirk that quickly dissolved into a grimace of pain. She grabbed his shirt, her voice breaking. "Why didn't you tell me something was wrong? Why didn't you let me in?" His eyes softened, truly softened. "Because wanting you is dangerous," he whispered. "What does that mean?" she cried. But he didn't answer. His eyes closed. "Alessio, no, stay with me," she shouted, shaking him. Guards rushed in, grabbing him, lifting him. "We need the doctor now." Lila followed, never letting go of his hand. Something inside her was changing, something she couldn't explain. She wasn't crying because she was afraid of losing her husband. She was crying because somewhere between loneliness and anger, she had begun to care about him, deeply, dangerously, more than she ever meant to. The mansion's medical room buzzed with panic as guards carried Alessio inside. Lila ran after them, her hands trembling, her breath coming out in frantic gasps. The smell of antiseptic filled the air as the doctor hurried over, barking orders. "Lay him on the table, careful, careful." Blood dripped from Alessio's sleeve. His face had gone pale, lips tightening each time the doctor pressed around the wound. Lila stood by his head, clutching his cold hand between hers. "Is he going to be okay?" she whispered. The doctor's brows creased. "He's lost blood, but he's conscious. That's a good sign." He turned to a nurse. "Prepare stitching." Alessio flinched as the needle pierced his skin. His jaw flexed, but he didn't look away from Lila. She wiped her cheek. "Why did you fight alone? Why didn't you wait for the guards?" He exhaled shakily. "Because they were heading toward your wing." Her breath caught. "You ran toward the danger?" The doctor muttered under his breath, stitching with quick movements. Lila's heart twisted. "You came to protect me?" "Of course," Alessio said, his voice low, worn. "I would never let anything happen to you." Her lips trembled. She couldn't stop staring at him, the man who avoided touching her, but risked his life without hesitation. The doctor finished stitching. "He needs rest. Do not stress him." Alessio began to sit up, but Lila pushed gently on his shoulder. "Stay, please." His eyes flickered at the plea, as if it meant more than she realized. He obeyed, lying back. When the guards left and the room quieted, Lila sank into the chair beside him, emotions swirling violently inside her. "Lila," he said softly, "you shouldn't have run out there. It was reckless." She let out a shaky laugh. "You're scolding me now?" "Yes," he murmured. "Someone should." Silence stretched between them, thick but gentle this time. The tension had shifted into something unfamiliar, warmer, real. She took a breath, gathering her courage. "Tell me the truth. Why do you keep your distance? Why do you push me away like I'm a threat?" His eyes darkened, not with anger, but fear. He turned his head toward the ceiling. "Because wanting you could kill me." Her heart slammed in her chest. What does that mean? His nostrils flared as he exhaled, as though he'd held this secret too long. "I have a heart condition," he said quietly. "Severe. Any intense physical strain is dangerous, including intimacy." The air left her lungs. "I was diagnosed years ago," he continued. "Doctors warned me that, at my age, pushing my body too far could trigger complications." Lila stared at him, speechless. "I didn't avoid you because I didn't want you," he said, voice trembling on the edge of honesty. "I avoided you because I do." Her eyes widened. "You wanted me." His throat tightened. "Every day." Her breath caught, heat rushing to her face as understanding washed over her. He closed his eyes briefly before whispering, "But I didn't want you to be a widow before you turned 19. The room tilted around her. She had spent months believing she was unwanted, unattractive, rejected, when in reality he had been fighting himself. Her chest burned. "You should have told me." "I couldn't," he said. "Your family needed security. You needed safety. I didn't want to trap you with a sick man." "You didn't trap me," she whispered. "You just shut me out." He opened his eyes again, slowly, painfully, and met her gaze. "I'm sorry." The words were barely audible, but they broke something inside her. She leaned forward and laid her forehead against his arm. "I thought I wasn't good enough," she whispered. "I thought you hated me." "I could never hate you," he said. "Not with the way you look at me, not with the way you speak to me. You're too gentle for a man like me." She lifted her head slowly. His hand rose, trembling, and brushed a tear from her cheek. The temperature of the entire world seemed to shift. "Lila," he murmured, voice deepening with emotion he'd held back for months. "You're 18. I'm not supposed to want you." "And yet you do," she whispered. His breathing hitched. Before he could respond the door burst open. "Don Alessio, the eastern perimeter is secure." A guard paused, eyes widening at the sight of the Don touching his wife's face, a moment too intimate to ignore. Alessio's hand dropped instantly, as if caught doing something forbidden. "Later," Alessio said sharply. The guard nodded and disappeared. Lila stared at him. He stared back. So much said, so much unsaid. That night changed everything between them. The next morning he let her accompany him to breakfast. That alone sent whispers rippling through the staff. No one had ever seen the Don let any woman sit near him with such ease. When she picked up a spoon, his hand brushed hers accidentally. She froze. He froze. Their eyes locked. He wasn't as distant. He wasn't as cold. He wasn't as untouchable. And she wasn't as lonely. The tension grew daily. They talked more, shared small smiles, walked through the garden together. Once he even reached out to steady her when she tripped, and didn't pull his hand away immediately. But there was still a line he refused to cross, until one stormy night when everything cracked again. Thunder roared outside, rain slammed against the windows. Lila tossed in her bed, unable to sleep. A loud crash echoed from the hallway, something heavy falling. She rushed out to find Alessio, leaning heavily against the wall, his breaths labored. "Alessio!" she gasped, running to him. "What's wrong?" He swayed. She caught him, gripping his shoulders, heart racing, his weight pressed against her. "I'm fine," he muttered, though his voice sounded far from it. "Just dizzy." "Sit down," she told him firmly. "Please." He obeyed, sitting in a nearby chair. She knelt before him, holding his hands. "You're still recovering. You shouldn't be walking alone," she whispered. He stared at her hands wrapped around his, and something inside him broke. "Lila." His voice softened, fragile, unprotected. "You scare me." She blinked. "I scare you?" "Yes." He cupped her cheek with a trembling hand. "Because you make me want things I can't have." Her breath froze. Thunder echoed. His thumb brushed her skin. Heat shot through her. Her lips parted. "Then have them," she whispered. His jaw clenched, fighting himself. "I can't. If anything happens to me." "I don't care," she said, tears gathering. "I don't care about your age or your condition. I care about you." He inhaled sharply, chest rising with a shudder. His self-control snapped. With a low, broken sound, he pulled her into his lap and kissed her. Not gently, not cautiously, but with months of buried longing. She clutched his shirt, melting into him as he held her like he had been starving, like she was the first warmth he'd felt in years. The storm raged outside, inside. Something even more dangerous exploded. They didn't stop. Neither of them wanted to. That night, the night he thought might kill him, was the night that saved them both. What they shared left him breathless, trembling, alive in ways he hadn't felt in decades. And it left her with something she never expected, something growing quietly inside her, a life created from one forbidden moment, a baby. David's hand trembled slightly as he reached up and cupped her cheek. His thumb brushed away the tear rolling down, his voice barely steady. "I'm not leaving you, even if you scream at me every day, even if you cry like this every night. I won't leave you." She let out a choking laugh sob, gripping his wrist. "Why? Why aren't you angry? Why don't you hate me?" "Because loving someone means staying when it hurts," he whispered. Her eyes widened slightly and she froze, her breath catching. He wasn't the romantic type. He rarely said anything that poetic. But in that moment, something inside her shifted again. Something big enough to change the air around them. He moved his hand from her cheek, letting it slide slowly down her arm before pulling away. "Take your bath. You need to relax." She stood there staring at him for several seconds, her chest rising and falling too fast. Then she finally backed into the bathroom and closed the door gently. David exhaled heavily, pressing both palms to the edge of the table. He didn't know how much longer he could handle this torture. She was soft, fragile, emotional, angry, hopeful, all at once. And he wanted her. God, he wanted her more every second. But he wasn't going to touch her until she wanted him with her whole heart, not because she felt forced, trapped, or confused. Inside the bathroom, Elena stood under the warm water, covering her face. She should hate this man. She should resent him. She should be plotting how to escape. But instead, her mind kept replaying his fingers on her face, the way his voice cracked when he said wouldn't leave her, the way he fought his frustration silently instead of shouting. What kind of arranged marriage was this? She stayed in the bathroom longer than necessary because her heart was racing too fast to face him. And when she finally stepped out, towel wrapped around her, she found him sitting on the bed reading a book, looking calm, except for the slight tension in his jaw. He glanced up at her and blinked. Her towel slipped a little at the top, and she quickly gripped it. "Sorry," she muttered, looking away. "You don't have to apologize for existing," he murmured. She swallowed hard and walked to the wardrobe to pick her nightwear. But as she opened the drawer, she froze. Her nightwear was basically lingerie. Lacy, tiny, barely covering anything. Her mother must have packed it without telling her. Oh, God. Her face burned. She didn't want to wear that. Not with her emotions all tangled like this. David watched her shoulders stiffen from across the room. "Elena, I'm fine," she said too quickly. He stood and walked closer, but not too close. He stopped a good distance behind her. "No, you're not." She squeezed her eyes shut, gripping the silk fabric. "If I wear this, you'll think I want to." Her voice got too soft. David understood instantly. "Wear what makes you comfortable," he said. "I don't want you to do anything because you're scared of what I'll assume." Elena opened the drawer again, grabbed an extra-large t-shirt, and held it protectively to her chest. "This. I'll wear this." "Good," he whispered, and he turned away, giving her full privacy to change. She kept sneaking glances at him, at his broad back, his steady posture, the muscles shifting slightly beneath his shirt. Why did he always turn away? Why didn't he try anything? Why was he so careful? It was confusing. When she finally walked out wearing the oversized shirt, her hair damp, her feet bare, David swallowed hard. She looked young, soft, natural. Too beautiful. He stood and took the floor mattress again. "David," she said quietly. "Yes. You don't have to sleep on the floor anymore." For the first time that night, he froze. She looked away and rubbed her arm. "Share the bed, please. I don't want to sleep alone." He slowly walked toward the bed, his steps controlled. He sat on the edge, inhaling deeply. "Are you sure?" She nodded without looking at him, her cheeks bright red. Just don't touch me if I'm asleep." He gave a small, shy smile. "I won't." They lay down, not facing each other. David kept his hands firmly to his side, as if afraid the mattress would explode if he moved. Elena stared at the ceiling for long minutes. Then she whispered, "Thank you for being patient." "You deserve patience," he replied gently. Silence filled the room until Elena's breathing finally evened out. In the middle of the night, David woke up to soft movement. Elena had shifted closer in her sleep, way closer. Her head was on his shoulder, her leg draped slightly over his. His heart thudded painfully, but he didn't dare move. She felt safe enough to cling to him subconsciously. He closed his eyes again, trying to steady his breathing. Minutes later, her fingers curled into his shirt, holding him tighter. He whispered into the air, "Elena, don't do this to me." But he didn't move away. He stayed perfectly still, letting her hold him. By sunrise, she woke up and screamed, "Wow, what are you doing on my side?" He flinched awake. I wasn't... You moved... I did what?" "You climbed on me," he said helplessly. "I could never." "You literally are right now," he said softly, looking down at where her leg was still on his. She gasped and pushed away from him, nearly falling off the bed. "I didn't mean... This is..." David sat up, rubbing his face. "It's fine. Nothing happened. I didn't touch you." But her entire face was red as she scrambled away. The next few days passed with slow, steady progress. Elena started sitting with him during breakfast. She asked him small questions about his childhood, his job, his favorite foods. He never pressured her, never forced intimacy, never crossed boundaries. And that broke her more than anything. How could someone so patient exist? One night, during a minor thunderstorm, Elena found herself trembling again. She hated storms. She hugged her pillow, trying to calm down. David was sitting at the table writing when he noticed. "Elena." "I'm fine," she whispered shakily. Another loud crack of thunder hit, and she whimpered. A soft, terrified sound. David stood instantly and approached her. He sat beside her on the bed, unsure if she wanted comfort. She didn't move away. Instead, she leaned slightly into him. "Can I?" he asked. She nodded. He wrapped an arm very slowly around her shoulders and pulled her into a gentle embrace. She buried her face against his shirt, shaking. "It's just noise," he murmured, stroking her hair. "I'm here." "I hate it," she whispered. "I know." She clung to him tighter, his scent, his warmth, the steadiness of his breathing. It calmed her. Minutes later, she whispered, "David." "Yes." "Earlier. I didn't climb on you on purpose." He smiled faintly. "I know. And I don't hate you." His chest tightened. "I know. And..." Her voice trembled. "I think I'm starting to care about you." His hand froze. He slowly lifted her chin so she'd meet his eyes. "Don't say it, unless you mean it." "I mean it," she whispered. Something inside David broke. Months of restraint cracked at once. But he still asked softly, "Can I kiss you?" Her breath hitched, and she nodded. He leaned in slowly, his lips brushing hers. Warm, gentle, patient. She melted into it, pressing closer. The kiss deepened naturally, but he pulled back first, forehead resting against hers. "Elena, if we continue, I won't be able to..." "Stop." "I don't want you to stop," she whispered. He searched her eyes one more time, looking for fear. There was none, only want, only trust. So he kissed her again, harder this time. And for the first time, she kissed him back without confusion, without fear, without hesitation. The night didn't turn into full intimacy. He stopped before things went too far, because he wanted her first time to be when she was absolutely sure. But the next morning she hugged him from behind while he made breakfast. He stiffened. "Elena." "Hmm? What are you doing?" "Hugging my husband," she said simply. His heart almost stopped. Weeks passed with them growing closer, laughing, talking, teasing, holding hands, kissing gently on quiet afternoons. Trust grew, comfort settled. And what one night, after months of building emotional intimacy, Elena whispered into his chest, "I want you." David froze, breath shaking. "Are you sure?" She nodded, eyes deep with certainty. "I want all of you. Not because I have to. Because I love you." He kissed her fiercely, lifting her chin. "I love you too." That night was nothing like the wedding night she feared. It was slow, emotional, safe. He was gentle, careful, endlessly patient. He kissed every fear away, every insecurity, every doubt. And for the first time, she understood why her heart had been pulling her toward him all along. Months later, Elena stared at the pregnancy test in shock. 2 lines. She gasped, then screamed happily. David rushed into the bathroom. "Elena, are you okay? What's..." She thrust the test at him, eyes overflowing with joy. "David, I'm pregnant." His mouth fell open. Tears instantly filled his eyes. The man who never cried. "Elena." He pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly. "Thank you. Thank you for choosing me." She laughed into his chest. "You're not too old for anything." He chuckled, kissing her forehead. "Say it again." "You," she whispered, "are the only man I ever want." They stayed locked in that embrace, their tears mixing with laughter. And as the months passed, their love grew deeper, built not on force or tradition, but on patience, trust, and finally, unbreakable devotion. If you love this story, hit the like button, drop a comment, and don't forget to subscribe for more emotional dramas like this one. Your support keeps these stories coming.